Yo guys, what is good and welcome back on the channel. So, welcome to a new video. In today's video we're gonna talk about why I bought a Sony, why I ditched my old Canon and went for the Sony a7 IV instead of literally any other camera, like my specific reasons on why I upgraded to that specific camera, not why I upgraded, because obviously the Canon 80D that I had before was way older than any modern camera. It was about 6 years old. It was a DSLR, so no mirrorless, and yeah, I think the reasons why I upgraded are quite obvious. So, and of course I had the money, you know. I sold my Canon and decided to get the a7 IV. I got it on a really good deal, which actually plays a role in why I got this camera instead of another one. But yeah, so this video might get a little longer, so grab yourself a nice cup of tea, a nice cup of coffee, whatever you prefer, and get comfortable with me. I'll stay with my water and follow me through this video. So I hope this is actually going to be some kind of help for you on, you know, to decide maybe what camera you should get, if it's worth upgrading, seeing difference between different camera brands like Canon, Sony, Nikon, all of this. Yeah, so I divided everything into, how many chapters is it? I think it was 9 different chapters. Yeah, 9 different chapters. I have a whole script right here with 4 different pages of just notes I took on this video. So if you get a little bored in one section and you just want to know, or you just want to know something specific, then you might jump ahead and use the timestamps in the video to do so. So first of all, I just want to clarify what type of shooter I am. So what type of work do I do? Because this is super important. Some people do a lot of videos, so they prefer different cameras. Some people that do a lot of photos. And for me, it's kind of a mixed bag, because I mostly do photos, or I mostly upgraded my camera because I wanted to take some nicer photos. But as you can see right now, I also do videos. So I wish I could show you my a7 IV and the Tamron 28-75 that I bought with it right now, but apparently I'm filming with it. So I do a little bit of film work, so I also want to have a nice quality right there. But it's definitely not my main focus. Like, basically every camera that's not older than 6 or 8 years is capable of filming 1080p Full HD with, you know, 30 or even 60 FPS and provide a nice quality and, you know, make videos exactly like this. Maybe not the most cinematic videos, but still something you can definitely watch on YouTube and stuff. So yeah, this was definitely not the reason I upgraded. My 80D was definitely enough for this. But besides that, I'm doing photos and stills, and I'm doing a lot of STEM and a lot of different ones. So I do landscape, wildlife, street photography. I'm doing people, aka events, you know, taking the camera up to birthday parties. I wasn't at a wedding so far, but maybe in the future I want to be ready to shoot a wedding. I'm making macro photography. I'm not making super much of any of these things, and that's probably not the best way you should approach it. But basically I'm not settled in one specific niche and area. And this always makes the camera selection a little bit harder, because for some people, you know, they do only street photography, so they want something that's not really obvious, that's really tiny, looks maybe like a retro camera or something. And for people that do wildlife, they might prefer APS-C, or, you know, they need super long lenses and all that stuff. But because I'm, you know, a type of hybrid shooter where I do, or want to be able to do all of these things at the same time, I can't really like go down any of these niches. So I just wanted something that was flexible and, you know, that still didn't stretch the budget too much. Talking about it, I had about 2,200 euros of budget. I actually ended up paying 2,200 euros, but I got a cashback deal where I get for $300 or euro back. So basically my end price cost was 1,900 euros for the camera and the lens, which is a really good deal. So next up I want to talk about what camera I actually wanted, because just by saying, you know, I want something flexible and something I can use really easy, it doesn't tell you the whole story. So obviously everything was better than, you know, my Canon EOS 80D, and obviously I also had the budget limit, so I couldn't really spend more than maybe 2.5 grand. But my checklist, and the A7 IV checks all of them, my checklist had the full frame sensor. I only shot APS-C before, but I wanted to try full frame. Everybody talks about it. Don't think, and even before buying, I didn't think it was, you know, worth the hype or needed, but I just wanted to try it and yeah, see how good it is actually. I wanted to have something that's mirrorless. Obviously, you know, I shot DSLR so far, and I just want to try out how a mirrorless camera feels. So far I'm quite satisfied with it. Obviously you get the crux of, you know, the sensor being a screen, which is great because you see the photos or videos that you gonna have like on your SD card, but at the same time the resolution is not as good as with an DSLR, obviously, because it's a screen. I also wanted to upgrade the autofocus, so I pretty much wanted to have the eye recognition, and also everybody talks about how they like their joystick in the cameras, and you know, my camera didn't have a joystick for selecting the autofocus field, so I definitely wanted to have that. So far the eye autofocus is great when shooting people, and I haven't shot animals so far really, but I didn't find much value in the joystick. It's just, you know, I think I gotta get used to it, actually using a joystick to autofocus, because everybody swears by that, but it's a little bit, you gotta get used to this, I think. Also wanted to have a good sensor, preferably more than 24 megapixels, which is what I had in my old Canon EOS 80D. But that wasn't a necessity. Many of the cameras that I looked at when comparing them were 24 megapixels. So yeah, wasn't a necessity for me, but I really enjoy the 33 megapixels on the A7 IV. Something that was also important for me, because I didn't have it on my 80D and it just bothered me so much, is the option to customize the camera to how I want it. So basically on the Sony, I think they do a great job of, you know, letting you set up every single knob or button or, you know, dial the way you want, and letting it control the features you want, and maybe not exactly what's labeled on it. And this is something that I really missed on my EOS 80D, and to this day I don't understand why camera manufacturers didn't come up with this earlier, because in my head it's such an easy fix in software, you know, just give people the option to map different controls to the hardware controllers. But yeah, this was something that I really wish I had with my 80D, and that I want with my new camera. Most of the modern cameras, like the mirrorless ones, have at least a good amount of customizability. As said, I wanted to have okay-ish video quality. Didn't have to be great. 4K is nice, I think. I don't think it's a must-have in 2024, but it's still good to have. But yeah, all modern mirrorless cameras, especially the full-frame ones, film 4K 30 FPS, I think. Haven't seen one that's not 4K. So yeah. Obviously I'm only talking about the camera right now, but I always wanted to get a nice lens and something that I could, you know, use with it, because I sold all my other lenses. I didn't have any lenses anymore. So the only thing I wanted is really the f2.8 mark on it. Didn't really care about much else. I think the Tamron 28 to 75 f2.8 G2 that I went with is really a amazing lens. Seeing a lot of people talk really good things about it. It's a standard zoom lens, so I only have one lens at the moment, but I have still like a good amount of different, like, what do you call it? Zooms? No. Like, I got a standard zoom lens, and I'm quite satisfied with that. I also wanted the camera to feel new and modern, and I bought the camera new, not used, which is on the camera market always the best option, I think, buying stuff used, because the gear is going to be there lasting 10 years probably. So there isn't really an issue of buying used stuff. Obviously there's always like exception to the rules, but most of the times I bought my other two cameras used. And but this is also something that, you know, there's this thing when you buy stuff used, it's just, it doesn't feel new. And especially if you buy something used that's been out for like 5 or 6 years and it's used and it's not, you know, the top of the line most modern thing in that budget, it just doesn't feel so great, so new and modern and all that stuff. So I also want to have that. The rest, I don't care. And that's basically the camera I wanted, in really a few sentences. And now I'm just going to go over a few brands and tell you about why I didn't went with Canon, why I didn't went with Nikon, why I didn't went with Fujifilm, and why I didn't went with any other brand that's out there, but why I chose Sony. And this is going to be the end part of the video. It's going to be, I think, the longest section, actually explaining why I chose this camera and why I went with Sony. But I think before that it's important to see like why I didn't consider any of the other brands. So first of all, it would have made sense to get a Canon, a lot of sense for me, because I always shot Canon. I enjoyed my Canons, I really like them, and yeah, usually if you own one type of brand, camera brand, whatever, you usually stick with that. But the cameras with Canon are really, really good. I've seen people comparing them to the Sony. I see people comparing them to others. I see people using them almost like, I'm like, yeah, these cameras are good. And because I had Canons myself, I know how they're gonna feel, I know how they're gonna behave, and just, I think it would feel a lot more like home than the Sony actually does. There were camera bodies that were in the budget that maybe would have stretched the budget a little bit more because there weren't like any special deals, special offers on them. But still, I think I could have went with a Canon from like a price point perspective. Also, they have great quality, like the viewfinder and screens are way better than on the Sony. That's one of the parts I don't really like about this. The ergonomics are better. People say that the colors are a little bit better. I think that's a little up to preference. I'm shooting in RAW most of the times anyway, so I don't really care. And yeah, the autofocus also might be a little bit better on the modern Canon cameras. But there are like huge downside, and obviously if you know anything about Canon and like their mirrorless camera system, you know that the lenses are restricted. So I wanted to switch to Canon, but the lenses are so expensive. There is not really a lot of lenses that are available. Like obviously there's a lot of lenses available, but if I pay $2,000 for the camera body and I pay something between $500 and $3,000 for every lens that I get, it's just like it's not affordable as a hobby. I think like for the pros, that's all they need. You know, they don't want to like cheap out on a lens and get like the $300 version from Tamron or Sigma or something. But and these lenses are still really good. Not saying anything against that, but like from a beginner to intermediate perspective, it's just not a good system. It's, you know, I don't understand why they, like, I do understand why they don't open it up to like third parties, but I think it's just killing the whole Canon brand. Yeah, and then it would have gone way more expensive if I also got lens to the camera, which obviously would have made sense. And I also wanted to try something new, you know. I wanted to try. If you always stick with the same thing and you say, yeah, it's good, why would I switch it up? You'll never know if there's anything else that might actually be a lot better than what you have. So yeah, switching it up, getting another brand definitely seemed reasonable to me. Cheers. The next point is, the next brand I want to talk about is Nikon, and why I didn't switch to Nikon. To be honest, I never really looked into them. I always like, even though I think they're like the three big brands in like general photography, Nikon, Sony, and Canon. I never really looked into them. Obviously, they also have a good like lens selection, similar to Sony, which we're gonna talk about that. Way better than on Canon because they have all the Sigma, Tamron, Viltrox, like all the other brands are available for Nikon as well. Also, they seem to have like a good setup of camera bodies, like a good variety to choose from, and also like the price was pretty much in the budget. I could have got a camera, I think the Z6 III or something that was definitely in budget, and was like same level with the A7 IV, except people told me that the autofocus is not too great on them. Like not comparable to Canon or Sony, and also like there's just like nothing that really stands out to me. Like it feels a little bit like behind Sony and Canon. Like it does everything okay, and the price is okay, and everything is okay, but like there's nothing that where I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be a banger for that price, or this is gonna change up the way I'm working, or it's just like, and maybe that's just psychology, just in my head, but I never really like looked into them, and also not a lot of people seem to use them. Like I know it's branding, it's marketing, it's the brand sending out free cameras and stuff, but I have never seen like, maybe I probably have, but I can't think of a camera YouTuber that is using a Nikon to shoot, like as the main camera to shoot. So yeah, it's just I'm not comfortable with them. So I instantly scratched them off my list. Was like, yeah, no major selling point, not compared to Sony and the Canon. So get them out of the way. Then I also looked into Fujifilm, and I'm only having them on a list like this because I think it's kind of interesting. I thought about it to get them for a minute, because like when I first looked into getting a new camera, I actually didn't want to like replace all my other camera gear, like my main body, but I rather wanted a small compact camera that I could take with me for like street photography, like an everyday camera that is just easy to carry around, super light, and still does amazing photos. And Fujifilm, I think, is a great camera brand for that. They are cool, easy to carry around, but major downside, they're only APS-C, and once I started to look into the prices, I was like, yeah, I better, if I want to afford something that's really a ton better than my 80D, I gotta spend a lot more, so I probably gotta sell my 80D and all my other stuff. So it's gonna be a full camera switch. And from there, I wanted the full frame. I also wanted to be able to, shoot events and wildlife, and it's just ridiculous imagining someone in the wild, in the mountains, shooting like this or something with a Fujifilm. Probably some people are, but just not for me. Definitely, if you want to do street photography, if you're into the colors, I think they're really good. Fujifilm, I think, is doing good cameras, but it's just not the around that I was looking for. Then every other brand I really didn't look into too much, like Lumix, Leica, Pentax. They're all not too popular. Don't see a lot of people using them. Don't have the greatest lens selection as well. I think most of them. Don't see them getting recommended all too often as all-rounders, and I think there's a reason why the three big brands, Canon, Sony, and Nikon, are like the big players. So I instantly skipped out on them and didn't even include them in my research. So with all these brands out of the way, we'll actually come to the point where I'm going to tell you about why I took the Sony and why I specifically took the A7 IV. And basically, while my research obviously didn't went like this, I didn't check all brands and then went, okay, the only brand that's left is Sony. In this kind of setup, it is, I told you why I didn't use any of the other brands, and I'm going to tell you why I took Sony, which is because none of the other brands were fitting, you know, what my needs, what I needed, as good as Sony. But from that perspective, there's still a question why I took the A7 IV. And basically, with, you know, affordable mid-range intro full frame cameras with Sony, I only had to choose between the A7 IV, the A7 II, the A6700 and the A7V coming out. Also, there's, you know, the older generations, which I could have went with, for example, something like a A7 III, Mark III, instead of the Mark IV. But as I said, I wanted to have something that's new, that feels new, that is, you know, even though the A7 IV is 3 years old, it's still like quite new. When the A7 V, Mark V comes out, either like at the end of this year or at the beginning of next year, it's going to be really expensive compared to this, and I'm thinking that I won't need the upgrade. So these are the cameras that are like the newest in each of these setups. And the A7 Mark V obviously wasn't really a choice for me. It hasn't come out yet, and also when it's going to come out, I think the prices are rumored to be $3,000, which will make sense. It's a $200 or euro price increase from the like market introduction price of the A7 Mark IV, which, you know, according to inflation and all that stuff, it's quite reasonable. But I got my A7 Mark IV for $2,000, so that's a whole like $2,000 price gap that I was just not willing to bridge. How if the A7 Mark V had the craziest features and everything I'd ever wish for, I'm maybe gonna you know, think twice about that and regret buying the A7 Mark IV. But yeah, it's not gonna have them. It's not gonna be the most amazing thing and 10 times better than the A7 IV. So I'm not willing to pay $1,000 extra for it. Yeah, maybe I'll skip the A7 Mark V and then upgrade to the A7 Mark VI if my A7 Mark IV does the job as good as it does right now. We'll see. But the A7 Mark V was out of the table. Same with the A6700, as it just wasn't a full frame camera. And, you know, I said once I was at the point where I wanted to, you know, throw out $2,500 out of the window, the Alpha 6700 was just not an option anymore. So basically, I had the decision between the A7 Mark IV and the A7C Mark II. And these are, if you don't know about it, these are basically the same camera, just the A7 Mark IV is the mother and the A7C2 is the little brother that came out 2 years later, has a little bit more compact body, but you know, both of them have the same 33 megapixel full format sensor, full frame sensor, I mean. Both of them have similar, really similar features, but when the A7C Mark II got introduced, it was more affordable and way cheaper than the A7 Mark IV, which I think drew a lot of people to it rather than to the A7 Mark IV, because we're gonna get into like the differences in a second, but you know, it had the advantage of the cheap price, which wasn't true for the market just when I bought the camera, because the A7 Mark IV, really getting confused with the names right now, the A7 Mark IV had a $400, you know, cash sale on it, where it was like, you know, I don't know why they did it, but they basically gave everyone $400 off the camera. Like on all stores, I think it was an offer from Sony. And this, one of a sudden, made it way more cheaper than the A7C Mark II. And I think they're doing it because, you know, the A7 Mark V is launching and they want to, you know, sell off the Mark IV, at least partly. But basically, this way, the price difference wasn't really there. The A7 Mark IV was cheaper than the A7 Mark II C's, the A7C Mark II, which definitely influenced my decision heavily. I think I would still choose the A7 IV over the A7C Mark II, but even at the same price, or if it was more expensive. But let's get into the actual features of both of them. So, as already said, both of them have the 33 megapixel sensor, full frame cameras. They have the same screen. They are both highly customizable, all the dials, all the knobs are customizable. Both have the Sony FE mount, which has a really, really good lens selection. I think it's probably the best in the market, just because Sony was the first to really, get into that mirrorless camera market. So there's a lot of third-party lenses. There's lenses in all kinds of spectrum, from aperture to zoom range to prices, basically. So you can get really cheap lenses that are still okay. You can get a little bit more expensive lenses that are great, and then you can get all the big boys and all the really expensive gear that you can get. That's amazing. Also, both of them have the 10 FPS burst rate, which only works with compressed RAW, which is why I'm not shooting with it. But you technically have up to 10 FPS when you're bursting, and both of them had not too great ergonomics compared to my Canons, at least. And this was something that a lot of people pointed out on YouTube. They just said like, yeah, obviously Sony doesn't have the best ergonomics compared to Canon and all the other stuff. But I don't notice it all too much. Like, the setup is quite heavy. I think it's like 1.3 kilograms, but I still after being out 1 or 2 hours, I can carry the camera around just with my hand, and it works fine. So yeah, but right there, the A7 Mark IV is a little bit on top over the A7C Mark II, just because it's a little bit bigger, and it's the bigger case. So it just a little bit better. Now let's come to the selling points of the A7C Mark II, like why this is the better camera, or why it might be the better camera. So first of all, it had, and this is something that was really important for me and that almost made me buy it, is that it had the AI autofocus chip, which allows for way better eye recognition, and also for more subjects to be traced. So, and also does insects, it does cars, like trucks and stuff. And I think it can also detect what it is seeing right now, which is super handy because they don't have to switch around between human, bird, and animal, which is the kind of selection that I have on my A7 Mark IV. And this is also on par with the Canon, where I mentioned that on the Canons the autofocus is better than on the A7 Mark IV. But yeah, this is definitely a good selling point for the A7C II. It's also smaller and lighter. I think it's about 100 grams lighter and just a little bit smaller. Fits into smaller pockets. This is obviously you can see it as an upside if you're just shooting with short lenses and stuff. But if you combine that with the worse ergonomics and you're trying to shoot with like big lenses, wildlife type of stuff, it's gonna be looking a little bit silly probably, and it's also just gonna be not the best to handle. Also, it has slightly better image stabilization. Didn't really care about that. It's 2 years newer, so maybe gonna have a few more software updates, but at the same time it's based on the same chips and on like the same sensor as this A7 IV, so it's probably gonna be the same. But yeah, if you care about that, it's got released mid 2023 and not at the end of 2021 as to say A7 IV. So yeah, and usually it is cheaper, which is a great selling point. Price is always the thing that's going to be most important, I think. Except it's 2 years newer, so it's not going to go on sale as soon as the A7 Mark IV, which is exactly why I got my A7 Mark IV for so much cheaper. Yeah, now let's come to the A7 Mark IV selling points. Why I picked it over the A7C Mark II. So it has a high resolution viewfinder, and to be honest, I'm not super impressed by the viewfinder. It's like the tech obviously is crazy, but like it's not flawless. Like you can see it's pixelated sometimes, and you have to choose between either a high frame rate or good resolution, which is just, you know, it's good, but it's not great. But it's way better than on the A7C Mark II. Also, it's on the A7 IV, the viewfinder is exactly in the middle, and on the A7C it's like to the left, like on a retro camera, and it's just weird. People don't like it, and if people don't like it, I probably won't as well. So yeah. Also, the A7 Mark IV has 2 SD card slots, and one of them is a multi-CF Express Type A slot, which is the same as on the A7 Mark II, but it also got a second SD card slot. So if you're at a wedding or something where it's super important that you don't lose any photos, because if, like, it never happened to me, but it happened to almost every photographer that's shooting regularly, so fingers crossed it won't happen any time soon, but probably I will lose SD cards one way or the other. So it has 2 slots. So if you're shooting something super important, you can set it up so that it's saving the pictures on both SD cards at the same time, and this just makes it easy to, you know, be a little bit more assured that you won't lose any photos. And yeah, also it feels a little bit more serious than the A7C Mark II, which is, you know what I'm talking about when I mean, like, just imagine someone standing there in the wild with his 700mm lens, shooting with the A7C, which is super tiny and compact. And yeah, when I'm going out to events or something and shooting them, I don't want to have a tiny camera like this that looks like a street photography camera. For that, it's great. For travel, where, you know, family, where you know, just want to be able to take out the camera, take a few photos, put it back, the A7C might actually be better, also with the better autofocus and everything. And then you might also, you know, if you're not working hours and hours on it, you might be really satisfied with the viewfinder and not bother all too much. But if you're really, you know, shooting hours and hours on end, I think the A7 IV is just more comfortable, just a little bit more ergonomic, if that makes sense. With that being said, I don't think that you can do, like, it's a bad choice, either of the cameras. They're both quite good and both usable. The price definitely also helped with my decision. You know, I think if the A7C would have been 400 euros less, probably would have bought this over the A7 Mark IV, or maybe I would have actually got into Nikon, or it's just, you know, the price is such an important aspect of, you know, any purchasing decision, that I can only, you know, evaluate all the different points related to the price. Something might have the best features in the world, but if it's way too expensive, it's bad. And something might have, you know, not great features compared to the what's it called, like other brands or other like similar products. But because it's half the price, it's actually insane value, and you should definitely get it. So it's always, you know, the mixture of the features and the price that make a good product in the end. And so it is with camera, and this is why I got the A7 Mark IV. But yeah, so far I'm really satisfied. It's definitely the learning curve, but, you know, people scared me a little bit when they said that the menus on the Sony are so bad and not usable and super clunky, and the touchscreen would be bad, and like, I don't have no issue. Yeah, the screen isn't as good as on my Canon. It's mirrorless. The menu is a little bit of a hassle. Still gotta get used to it, but yeah, if it's my main camera, if this is what I'm shooting with every day, I'm gonna learn it in a week, and that's not gonna be any problem. But yeah, I got a ton of options with lenses, which is the biggest selling point for the A7 or the Sony E mount in general. Just that you have so many lenses available and you can experiment with them. I like the pictures that come off the camera, they're great. But yeah, with that being said, I think we're gonna round it up. I've talked 35 minutes and we ran through all 4 pages of script. I hope this video helped you out in some kind of way, or that you at least enjoyed it. I hope I didn't bother you too much with my ams and ooms. Definitely look out for some Black Friday deals, you know. If you're looking to get a new camera, wait a little bit longer and maybe, you know, wait for Black Friday to come. Or, you know, in general, the deals before Christmas might be kind of good. So, with that being said, I wish you all a really great day and see you in the next video. Cheers.